The pilots saw the ice, they talked about it, yet the plane still crashed. Everyone knew the risks of winter flying. Experienced pilots understood the deadly game played between lift and ice. But on January 13, 1982, a routine flight out of Washington, D.C. would become a tragic object lesson in how quickly the familiar can turn fatal. Air Florida Flight 90, a Boeing 737-222, was scheduled to depart Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport, then simply Washington National, bound for Fort Lauderdale. On board were 74 passengers and 5 crew members, all oblivious to the series of subtle, almost imperceptible errors already unfolding. The day was unusually frigid for Washington, a biting cold that had blanketed the city in snow and ice. The Potomac River, a mere stone's throw from the runway, was a dark, churning mass, partially frozen over. This was the backdrop for a disaster that would etch itself into aviation history. The flight crew consisted of Captain Larry Wheaton and First Officer Roger Pettit. Captain Wheaton, 34, was the pilot in command, with over 8,000 hours of flight time. First Officer Pettit, 31, had about half that, but was experienced in his own right. Both were competent, professional aviators. But competence, as we often learn, isn't always enough to overcome a cascade of critical oversights. The plane had arrived from Miami earlier that morning and endured a 3-hour ground delay due to the worsening weather. Snow was falling steadily, accumulating on the aircraft's surfaces. De-icing was essential. The aircraft was treated with Type I de-icing fluid, a mixture designed to remove existing ice and snow. However, Type I fluid offers only limited anti-icing protection, meaning it quickly loses effectiveness in continuing precipitation. The crew's pre-flight checks began. Voice recordings from the cockpit show a series of discussions about the cold, the snow, and the critical importance of de-icing. First Officer Pettit, in particular, voiced concerns about ice forming on the wings. He remarked, "Look how the ice is just hanging on the back there, see that?" Captain Wheaton acknowledged the observation. This exchange, captured by the cockpit voice recorder, would later become a chilling testament to the crew's awareness of the hazard. Another crucial detail: the flight crew opted not to use the engine anti-ice system during ground operations or takeoff. This system routes hot air from the engines to critical surfaces, including the engine's intake and the fan blades, preventing ice accumulation. The Boeing 737 engine pressure ratio, or EPA, gauges are key instruments for setting takeoff thrust. They measure the ratio of engine exhaust pressure to inlet pressure. Ice accumulation in the engine's inlet can drastically skew these readings, leading to an underestimation of actual thrust. The problem was subtle. The gauges would indicate sufficient power, but the engines themselves would be producing far less than required for a safe takeoff. It was a silent, invisible killer, already at work before the plane even left the gate. As the plane taxied for takeoff, First Officer Pettit again pointed out ice on the wings to Captain Wheaton. He said, "It's been a long time since I've seen any ice on the wings, Captain, and I don't know, it's just not right." Captain Wheaton's reply was dismissive. "Yeah, that is from the, de-icing that we just did." A critical opportunity to halt the unfolding disaster was lost, brushed aside by a seemingly logical, yet ultimately incorrect, assumption. The plane was cleared for takeoff on runway 36. The snow continued to fall. As they began their takeoff roll, the first officer again noted a peculiar reading. "That doesn't seem right, does it?" That's not right." He was referring to the EPR gauges. Captain Wheaton, perhaps influenced by the pressure of the moment or the belief in the de-icing, pressed on. "Yes, it is, there's 80. The aircraft was accelerating, but not with the expected vigor. The engines, choked by ice, were not delivering full power. At rotation speed, the 737 struggled to lift off. Instead of climbing, it barely cleared the runway, shuddering as it entered the air. The plane was critically underpowered, its wings contaminated, disrupting the airflow and robbing it of lift. Just 30 seconds after lifting off the runway at 4:01 p.m. EST, Flight 90 clipped the 14th Street Bridge, hitting several cars and a truck. The impact was catastrophic, tearing away sections of the aircraft and throwing debris onto the bridge. Then, with a terrifying finality, the Boeing 737 plunged into the freezing Potomac River. The icy water swallowed the fuselage whole, breaking it into several large pieces. The immediate aftermath was a scene of utter chaos and disbelief. Of the 79 people on board, 74 passengers and 4 crew members perished. On the bridge, 4 motorists also lost their lives. Only 5 passengers survived the initial impact and the freezing water, a testament to sheer luck and incredible resilience. The rescue effort was immediate, but hampered by the extreme weather. Civilians on the bridge, notably Lenny Skutnik, plunged into the frigid river to pull survivors from the wreckage. Their bravery shone brightly against the dark backdrop of tragedy. The investigation by the National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB, quickly focused on the critical role of ice. The cockpit voice recorder revealed the chilling exchanges between the pilots, their awareness, and their fatal misinterpretations. The NTSB concluded that the probable cause was the flight crew's failure to use engine anti-ice during ground operation and takeoff, and their decision to take off with ice and snow on the engine inlet probes, resulting in erroneous engine pressure ratio readings. The disaster of Air Florida Flight 90 led to significant changes in aviation safety protocols. De-icing procedures were tightened, pilot training on cold weather operations was intensified, and the importance of accurate instrument interpretation was re-emphasized. It stands as a stark reminder that even experienced aviators, aware of a hazard, can fall victim to subtle misjudgments and a chain of seemingly minor errors. The ghost pilots of Flight 90, their voices preserved on the recorder, offer a timeless lesson from the frozen skies. What other overlooked details in aviation history led to catastrophic outcomes?